and welcome to our Election 2025 Preview Special. I'm Kira Stevens. In our program today, we will be looking at the local ridings, the candidates, and some of the issues that Canadians are considering heading to the polls on Monday, April 28th. And helping us better understand how we will be providing results to you on our live election coverage on Monday night is Erica Brake. Erica, it's going to be a very interesting evening on Monday.
I think it will be, Kira, and our production team will be working to provide our viewers with the unfolding story of this election. From our vantage point, we'll try to keep you up to date on the results as the numbers come in. We will be focused on the races here in Brandon-Souris and the adjacent ridings of Riding Mountain to the north of us and Portage-Lisgar located east of us to bring you the latest local results. As well, we will bring you up to date on what happens in Manitoba and in the Prairie provinces with the number of seats won by the various parties. We will keep track of the national picture as we look at which of the parties looks to form government. And we will be looking at each of the federal leaders with Prime Minister Mark Carney in Nepean. We will be keeping track of Pierre Poilievre's race in the riding of Carleton. And we will be watching closely the results in the riding of Burnaby Central as Jagmeet Singh battles to maintain his seat and official party status. So that is a preview of what we'll be working on for you on Monday, April 28th. So, Kira, it's going to be a busy, energized evening of live election coverage.
Well, we are looking forward to see how the election will unfold. Thanks, Erica. As Erica mentioned, we are going to be focused on the local ridings on Monday night. The first of our riding profiles is Brandon-Souris. It's the most populated riding in the Westman region and the economic heart of Western Manitoba. As Nolan Yons tells us now, it's the only region where the opponents of the Tories feel they have a chance at success.
This is Brandon, Manitoba's second largest city, home to 51,000 people, and the economic hub of Western Manitoba. Headquarters of two major post-secondary institutions, Assiniboine College and Brandon University, together making up over 6,000 students. The largest employer is Maple Leaf Foods. Over 2,000 work here, but thousands more work in healthcare, business, big and small, in industries like chemicals and transportation. Brandon often elects NDP members to the provincial legislature. In the last provincial election 2 years ago, Quentin Robinson lost out on the provincial seat for Brandon West by only 100 votes.
Over the last 30 years, I've been living in rural communities, and what I was doing there was being a United Church minister and a family counselor.
In this election, he's the NDP candidate for Parliament in Brandon-Souris, taking the values of the NDP government and reaching out to the people of Brandon.
For folks to really think during this election period, and when you go to put a check on the ballot, what party holds up the values that you treasure as part of Canada?
But Brandon City makes up just over half of the huge Brandon-Souris riding. The rest is rural, people working or serving agriculture and small businesses. Grant Jackson is the Conservative candidate for the riding. He took over after long-standing MP Larry Maguire stepped down unexpectedly due to health reasons. Although considered young at age 28, Jackson has grown up with politics. His father was the mayor of Souris. Jackson was recently elected MLA at the provincial level for the riding of Spruce Woods.
It's a really tight-knit community here in Westman. Everybody knows everybody or is related to somebody from one of the small towns across the region, and I think we all really stick together.
Jackson is expected to be elected. This federal riding has been held by Conservative for 32 years. If Jackson is voted in, he would become the youngest serving MP to represent Brandon-Souris in the House of Commons.
People are concerned to walk around in downtown Brandon now, and that's not acceptable. We've got to bring that back to a place where people want to come and gather.
The Liberals last won the federal seat here in 1992. Gonzafar Allah-Tahar is the Liberal candidate. He only found out a month earlier he had been accepted by the party to run. We tried to reach out to Tahar, but there was no response. To find out what the community of Brandon is thinking about the election, I went down and asked the people of Brandon about voting.
Really important, yeah. I mean, the strength of our democracy depends on people voting.
Very important. I haven't missed it in years. You just do a lot of research. It takes a long time, but it's worth it. It's my country and it's worth it. We're going to watch the debate in English tonight and just collecting information as we go along.
I just look at who has the most fiscally responsible agenda and an agenda that will make Canada competitive again on the world stage.
Basically, find out who they're sleeping with, who's going to be making the decisions behind the scene.
The riding is changing. Brandon is becoming more multicultural. The average age here is 36, 5 years younger than the national average. But here, analysts say it's probably not going to change. It's a historical trend of electing a Conservative member of Parliament. I'm Nolan Yance in Brandon.
Thanks, Nolan. Located to the east of us is the riding of Portage Lisgar. Our producers Stu Smalley and Matt Schroeder introduce us to this large rural riding.
With the upcoming election at the end of the month, we went to Portage La Prairie in the Portage Lisgar riding.
Portage has the highest population per capita for voters, so today we asked those local voters their thoughts on the upcoming election.
The Portage Lisgar riding is part of the Western Manitoba region. It covers an area of just over 10,000 square kilometers. From the South Basin of Lake Manitoba to the U.S. border, it stretches westward to Swan Lake and eastward to the provincial capital of Winnipeg. Of the 95,000 people in this riding, there are 66,000 potential voters. The candidates that are fighting to represent this region include Janine Gibson of the Green Party of Canada, Robert Kreis of the Liberal Party, Kevin Larson of the People's Party, Brandon Leslie of the Conservative Party, and Lisa Tessier of the New Democratic Party.
We reached out to the candidates to hear what they had to say about the upcoming election. Unfortunately, we were not able to speak to any of them directly. We did, however, review each party's platform to gain a sense of the topics and promises each were making. The Conservative Portage Lisgar representative, Brandon Leslie, promises to abolish what was the carbon tax, repeal gun bans, support more farmers, and make housing more affordable. Robert Kreis of the Liberal Party promises to strengthen middle class and economic growth, do more to increase climate action, and to ensure that infrastructure projects meet accessibility benchmarks. Lisa Tessier of the New Democratic Party promises to help reduce carbon emissions to under 30%, banning the use of replacement workers on strike, and implement a better universal health care for lower-income Canadians.
With all these promises in mind, we asked locals what they look for in a candidate in the upcoming election.
I definitely support Poilievre's idea for not bringing in more people than we have homes. I think his policies for finding a dollar for every dollar that you spend, I think those are great ideas.
Like if the candidate has a platform that, a platform where there's fiscal responsibility, that's huge for me. And I don't see that with a lot of the candidates that we have right now.
With promises, no one does it better than young people. So we asked locals what they thought the impact young voters have on this election.
Young voters are going to be the future. They are the ones that are going to learn about how the process actually works and make a difference in the long term in terms of who's going to running our country.
I feel like if we really want to change the landscape of the future, not only for the economic, but for the housing development and everything like that, young voters will change the future. Because if we act now, then we will save our future.
So Matthew, those are some of the concerns the people of Portage La Prairie have in this Portage Lisgar riding concerning the upcoming election. It's time to vote.
Stu, I don't know about you, but it's my first time voting, and I sure am excited to vote. So everyone, go out, go vote.
I'm Stu Smalley.
I'm Matthew Schroeder. Westman This Week, Portage La Prairie.
Our final riding profile introduces us to the electoral district of Riding Mountain. Sofia Frolova has the details.
Located north of Brandon, the Riding Mountain electoral district is the second largest in the province. It includes distant communities of Dauphin, Swan River, Minnedosa, Westlake Gladstone, and Neepawa. The riding has a population of just under 91,000 according to the 2021 census. According to the Elections Canada, the voter turnout in 2023 reached 57%. It has a 65% of European population and a 28% Indigenous population. The riding was created in 2013 and was known as Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa. Following a boundary redistribution in 2022, it was renamed Riding Mountain. The Conservative Party has held the riding since its creation. There will be 5 candidates representing the major parties at the election. Terry Hayward, for the Liberals, Dan Messier, the incumbent MP for the Conservative Party of Canada, Andrew Douglas Maxwell for the NDP, Jim Oliver for the People's Party of Canada, and Liz Clayton for the Greens. Only 2 candidates responded to the request for an interview. They were asked questions on a variety of issues.
I don't know how to stop the polarization. We had it, and we've seen it even develop further with the rise in other parties, like the People's Party of Canada, I feel is very disruptive in the way they view Canada and is looking for unity. We are being challenged by foreign forces right now, the United States, China with its tariffs on our agricultural products. And as Prime Minister Carney has said, we need to come together. We need to come together to work for the betterment of Canada.
Reducing immigration was one of his big talking points. He recognized at that time the trajectory that the country was on as far as mass immigration being really lax with temporary workers and international students. And we don't do a lot to manage and maintain that body of immigrants. It isn't that we don't like immigrants, but we need to be more selective about who we permit and be more responsible about the people who do come here. So once they're here, if they are not offering any significant benefit to our nation and they're costing us money, they are reducing the available amount of housing and they're basically exhausting our social resources, then we don't really need them.
There is a commitment by the Liberal Party of Canada, by the leader of the party, that we would hold immigration levels to 5% of the Canadian population. That is down from the high of 7.5% that we've had recently. Not a party that is talking of stopping immigration. We are a party of saying, let's control the numbers, and that's of temporary workers and international students. So 5% is the figure that we are proposing to the Canadian public to deal with what some people say is the immigrant problem. And I don't see it as a problem. It's a situation.
The Conservatives talking, and even the Liberals talking about investing billions and billions of dollars in building 500,000 new houses next year. But they're not addressing the root issue, which is the excessive amount of immigration that we have. We don't have enough houses for all the newcomers, and it puts a lot of pressure on the market. And so all of a sudden, houses are 2 or 3 times as expensive as they were when I bought my first house.
Into almost a post-Second World War build scenario where we build affordable housing at the rate of 500,000 homes per year. When students get out of secondary school, some are wondering where they're going to go. And the trades are one place for them. There's going to be a huge need for growth in the, I'll call it the trades industry. We are going to be building. This is an election that I believe is one where people have to vote for the country, not the party.
All right, we will take a short break, and when we come back, we will take a look at some of the issues facing voters in this very consequential election. We'll be right back.
On April 28th, we decide who will lead our country through these complicated times. In Brandon Souris, in Portage Lisgar, in Riding Mountain. All through our region and our country, men and women asking you to choose them on election night to protect our interests in Ottawa. 28 million Canadian voters, hundreds of choices, one night, one future. Join us live on election night on WCG TV.
Welcome back. This has been a whirlwind campaign, and there's never been an election quite like this. As Canadians head to the polls on Monday, there are lots of issues to consider. Our Sofia Frolova takes a look at some of the campaign developments going into the final weekend before the vote takes place.
Hello, and welcome to the election countdown for April 25th. I'm Sofia Frolova. In our last edition prior to the 45th federal general election, we'll bring you the latest news and what you need to know before you vote. So let's get into it.
A record number of Canadians cast their ballots during advance voting this past weekend. Elections Canada reports that an estimated 7.3 million people voted between April 18th and 21st, surpassing the previous record of 5.8 million set in 2021. Long lines were seen at many polling stations, particularly on Good Friday. Some voters waited up to 2 hours in Ottawa. Elections Canada thanked voters and election workers for their patience and dedication. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has unveiled his party's full election platform. The plan promises $75 billion in tax cuts and $35 billion in new programs over 4 years. It also comes with a projected deficit of $31 billion this year. Poilievre says he'll slash bureaucracy, consultants, and foreign aid and boost home building, defense, and economic growth. The platform includes a cut to lowest income tax rate and new housing plans. Liberal leader Mark Carney called the platform a joke, saying it lacks a serious plan to stand up to Donald Trump. Winnipeg police are investigating after campaign signs for a Jewish conservative candidate were defaced with hateful messages. Several of Marty Moran's signs in the Tuxedo neighborhood were spray-painted with words like traitor and drawings resembling Hitler. His campaign says some of the graffiti was anti-Semitic. Morans is the incumbent MP for Winnipeg West and called the incident, quote, disgusting, and said he won't be intimidated. Police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating. Moran's Liberal opponent condemned the vandalism, saying, quote, there is no room for hate in politics. A new poll shows Quebecers are now rallying behind national unity. They're reportedly responding to fear stirred up by Trump's tariffs and comments about annexing Canada. Quebecers have historically been divided about Canada. Now, even the founder of the separatist Bloc Québécois has temporarily embraced federalism, saying, quote, we are together in defending Canada. Analysts say the party, which hoped to get up to 50 seats, is now fighting for survival. Prime Minister Mark Carney is seeing surprising support in Quebec. Carney is an Anglophone, but voters seem to be responding to his efforts to speak French and his strong economic credentials. But some worry this patriotic wave could come at a cost, weakening the voices that stand for Quebec's identity and culture in Ottawa. As the cost of living rises, party leaders are making affordability a top issue. The Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP are all promising financial relief, and they all say they'll run deficits to make it happen. The Liberal plan includes a 1% tax cut for low-income earners. They'll also remove the EI wait time for receiving severance packages. And the Liberals say they'll boost support for seniors by increasing the guaranteed income supplement. The Conservatives are offering bigger tax cuts, 2.25% on the lowest bracket. Trade workers could write off travel expenses, and working seniors could earn $10,000 more tax-free. The NDP is focusing on lower-income Canadians. They'd raise the tax-free income threshold to $19,500. Sorry. Could we run this one from the top? Sorry. Yeah, thank you. The NDP is focusing on lower-income Canadians. They'd raise the tax-free income threshold up to $19,000. They also want to scrap GST on energy, internet, and prepared foods, and double the Canada Disability Benefit. And just before we go, here's your latest update on where parties stand in the polls. Current national polls indicate the Liberals leading with 42% support, keeping a consistent 4 to 5 point lead over Conservatives, who stand at 38%. The NDP holds 8%, while Bloc and Greens have 6 and 2% respectively. And that's all the time that we have for our last election countdown. Join us for the result coverage on April 28th on WCGTV.
Thanks, Sophia. We'll take another short break, and when we come back, we will take a look at some of the young voters and the issues facing them as they prepare to cast their ballots, some for the very first time. We'll be right back. One group of voters that is frequently overlooked by candidates, or perhaps they feel disenfranchised and not a part of the process, are young voters. But this group represents an important demographic. Ashton Kalita spoke to a few young voters to gauge how they feel about this election.
With Election Day just around the corner on April 28th, I decided to go around Brandon University and ask students whether they think it's important that young people should vote, what sort of issues they think our next government should focus on, and if they will be voting based on who's running in their riding or who's running for Prime Minister.
I feel like young people really need to vote for the upcoming election because it really concerns our future, while older people might not care as much about climate change or the overall well-being of our Earth, because it's not going to affect them as much because they're older. Well, it's going to have a really big impact on our life, and also with other policies, it's going to affect us more eventually than it's going to affect the older crowd.
I think that they should really be focusing on making Canada the best country it can be, making it as affordable as it can be, and standing up for what's right.
I mostly care about not getting Pierre Poilievre in office. I don't want him in office. So I think I'm going to vote for the most we can do to not have him in office. I think locally we'll have a guy that comes in that'll fix things up, right? Like, that always works itself out, really. But I think it's important that, especially with Pierre's sort of parroting of Trump's remarks and Trump's policies, it'd be best to focus on the federal, because what happens in the federal will sort of filter down into the local, right? And I don't want to see that kind of rhetoric coming into Brandon.
Election Day is on April 28th, so be sure to get out there and vote. For more information on poll hours or how to register to vote, please visit the Elections Canada website. I'm Ashton Kalita, Westman This Week, Brandon.
Thanks, Ashton. Earlier this week, we had a chance to assemble a group of young voters, and our Kira McKay had a chance to discuss some of the major issues that young people are focused on in this campaign.
Hello and welcome to the Young Adult Panel. I'm Kira McKay, a communication student here at Assiniboine College, and I'm a young adult. In the last federal election, overall turnout was over 63%, but among young people under 25, it was just 47%, and that number has been falling for years. Our voices are important, and it's good for democracy to encourage all eligible young people to exercise their rights and vote in the election. We're going to talk about some of the issues that youth in this country feel often go unheard. With me is Israel Adenero.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. He's a digital artist currently studying at Assiniboine College. Next to him is Caden Smalley. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
He's a student of disaster management at Brandon University. And at the end is Brody Boer. Thank you for coming.
Thanks again for having us here.
Yeah, he's a political science student at Brandon University and president of the BU Political Science Association. And my first question for you all, the panel, is what's the main issue you think affects young people that you want the next government to address? And we'll start with Israel.
Well, I believe that there's multiple issues, but for me personally, I feel like besides the lack of jobs that I've noticed on the rise, like previously you'd finish high school and you'd go to like a McDonald's or something, but now those aren't even available. So the job market is like really, really tough and competitive right now, and it just feels like it's impossible to get anything good. And in addition to that, it feels like house prices are going up at crazy rates. Like it is impossible. Like if you compare it to the way things were for our grandparents or even our parents, it feels relatively easier that like they had it easy to get a house. But now it feels like it's not even possible unless you're making at least $100,000 a year.
It's really hard for anybody to get anything outside of renting. Being able to afford a house, just next to impossible unless you're going to get a degree. But even then, that comes with debt coming with getting a degree. Yeah. It's just job security. It's so hard to even find a part-time job just to get by. So realistically, it's just not that easy for young people to really enter the real world and get ahead in life.
One of the things I think that needs to be done is we need to have
some sort of inflation reduction acts that need to be looked at for young people to be able to succeed. Like there has been policies that the current administration, well, I guess it was previous to Mark Carney, but they looked at first-time home buyers accounts and being able for young people, that was a great thing. I personally did that where I was investing money into a first-time home buyer's account, and then you can have that money tax-free, take it out when you go to make that first down payment. Because that's the problem, is the first down payment that us as young people, we can't make that without getting help. So like, and like not everyone, like no one has $100,000 or 30 grand kicking around, like especially in today's economy. So I think it's just we need, and it's not something that you're gonna snap your fingers and house prices are gonna go down. I think it's just we need to find some way to remediate this and find some way to give young people a leg up so that we can be just as fair as, you know, the older ages as well. And when we get to that age bracket, we have a ability to, you know, succeed. Because I think the track we're going right now, unfortunately, it's going to be really hard for a lot of young, and it is for a lot of older people as well too. I won't deny that either. But
And I want to ask the hot question, because my personal observation with a lot of youth is that in the context of politics, a lot of them comment on immigration issues and say that, you know, it's like immigrants come in at an unregulated amount. So I wanted to know, and to Israel, what your thoughts are on the topic of immigration, and for you too as well.
That's a very interesting question, and there's a few layers to it, because I myself, I'm an international student. I feel like it could be regulated, and that's been a thing that's being done to an extent. Like it's definitely, compared to 2 or 3 years ago, you need a lot more documents to get a study visa or work visa, or even, you know, a visitor visa if you're coming to Canada. And these regulations are there, but I wish that they were in place sooner. And I agree with the fact that it's been done without regulation in the past couple of years, but it doesn't mean that Canada no longer needs immigrants. Like, I strongly disagree with people who believe that we have enough immigrants and they're already here. Canada's always, I feel like with the way it's even structured, and even though when you look at it historically, it's always relied on immigrants to function economically, because without the manpower that other countries have, especially with this size, it's not going to function, and inflation is going to be even worse. The economical state is going to be even worse than it is now.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what you said. I think it's, you know, I think the thing is that unregulation, I think that was the problem. And I think that, you know, I think it's just such a disadvantage when you have people that are moving here and then we don't have the housing to accommodate them.
Exactly.
It's setting them up to fail, that was the thing that I found it disheartening in a way, because people come to Canada because they see the promise. They see, you know, the potential.
The opportunities.
But there aren't the facilities and there isn't the social programs in place sometimes, I would argue, to succeed.
What makes it difficult for young adults to participate in politics? And we will start with Cadence for this one.
A lot of people have too extreme of opinions on politics, and that's just like they'll either go really right-leaning or extremely left-leaning. There's not a whole lot of area to be like just kind of moderate, because I know like a lot of left-wing people, if you're not exactly aligned with their policy, they'll demonize you and they'll be mad. But if you go too right, then it's just kind of getting into a point where it's just not exactly where you think. But I think that kind of turns younger people away, because like it's hard to have just like your own little opinion when everybody wants to try and fit you into a box, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, like I think having that like social pressure around politics makes a lot of people uncomfortable with talking about it, especially around young people.
There's that too, like his point is very valid, but I feel like I'm from Nigeria, by the way. Back home, a lot of the youth is not interested in politics because it feels like it's useless. It feels like even though they go outside and they voice their opinions and try to vote and participate, it doesn't do anything. And it's more so a problem of representation. Now, I know it's a lot better here in Canada. Like, the representatives aren't like in their 80s or 90s rather. Like, I feel like if there were people who were running that were my age that could actually have some political power or some political influence, I would definitely be interested in knowing what they were saying. So it's more so, it feels like politics is for older people because there aren't enough young people who are actually running for these positions. And it's almost like a chicken and egg situation where You need youth to be interested in politics, to have youth that will participate in politics.
I think just the key thing is there's a lack of dialogue. I really like Caden's point about, if you get demonized either way, and I know that there's instances where, that can happen. And I think what needs to happen is that, me and my friends, sometimes we'll talk, politics, and you come to disagreements about things, but at the end of the day, we can come to a middle ground. And I think at the end of it, on social media nowadays, you just see people just going after each other. And I think that is the problem. We can't have civilized conversations because you're not in this space where you're seeing people face to face. You're just a digital screen, and you can just go after people. And that is the thing, I've tried to talk on social media and, try to engage with people of all stripes. And sometimes people just get so tied down to their opinions that they're not willing to waver. And I think sometimes that can be a demonizing thing for young people because, people online are just trying to talk about issues. And I think you just get, no, you're wrong. You're, X, Y, and Z because you think this. And it's like, well, no, instead of demonizing the person, you should say, well, here's a counter opinion. Maybe this is something you can consider. And if they don't want to consider that, that's fine. But I think it's just we lack the dialogue within Canadian politics today to be able to come to a middle ground to have these discussions.
How do you want our leaders to be handling the concerns of young people? And what can leaders do to bring more young people into the process?
That's a big question, but I think there's multiple angles that you could take this question, but honestly, the way that I would approach it is I think that, again, I'm just going to talk about dialogue, and I think just actually connecting with people. I think, with the inflationary crisis, with everybody, with housing, and so many issues that we could talk about that, could go on for hours, and I think that there's just so many key issues within Canadian politics, and I think just because of the American, right now with the American pressure, I think that it's causing a lot of issues just to be glossed over. I think, a lot of the policies sometimes over the years, I think, have kind of, led to this point, and in past administrations as well. I think there's just been no matter the stripe, I think it's just been a glossing over of a lot of the concerns. And I think this is where it's happened. You had COVID happen, you had all these big global events happen that have led us to where we are today.
I think backpacking off that, being able to use the internet, because especially since it's so prevalent amongst young people, in this day and age, being able to have respectful conversations and being able to, really get especially information. I feel like unless you're specifically looking for it, I feel like I don't really see a lot of policies. I don't really see a lot of what's going on in politics in my day-to-day life. And I think having an avenue to be able to, connect to young people and being able to, deliver what's happening in the government, delivering new policies, all that kind of stuff to young people, and being able to, really make them informed and involve them in that sort of process would help, them be heard. It helps us be heard and our concerns.
Honestly, I'm just hoping for the best. I got fingers crossed. I hope that the immigration situation is handled a lot better because, yes, on our end, on the end of immigrants, a lot of people are misusing the opportunities and using them in ways that should not even be thought of. But at the same time, I feel like the Canadian government also has a responsibility to say, okay, we're not just gonna shut off all the channels through which immigrants can come in. We just have to do this in a more responsible and regulated fashion.
I think that's a great way to leave it off. It's just I think we need to find alternative means to make sure that young people, us here and millions of young Canadians can have a way to, succeed and have that leg up advantage that unfortunately the system right now has just posed a lot of barriers. So hopefully there's a way with the future government, whoever it be, can find a way to make that work for everybody.
This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you to each of us for joining here. I'm Kira McKay. Thank you for watching. No matter what your age, from 18 to 108, hope you'll make your voice heard at the ballot box.
Thanks, Kira. Let's take a short break, and when we return, we'll have a chance to discuss some of the national defense and security matters that voters are thinking of in an ever more uncertain world. We'll be right back. Welcome back. President Donald Trump has threatened Canada with annexation and economic attacks. The war in Ukraine is the largest land war in Europe since World War II. China is being more aggressive in the Western Pacific. As Canadians get ready to head to the polls, defense and security is on the minds of many. Our Stu Smalley had a chance to discuss some of these pressing matters.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Stu Smalley. Among the big issues that have come up during the federal election campaign, the future direction of the Canadian Armed Forces. Ultimately, it's about the defense of Canada itself. U.S. President Donald Trump has thrown a proverbial wrench into the world order established after the Second World War. What everyone believed was a friendly and stable defense relationship between the two neighbors now seems at risk of completely coming apart. For the first time in decades, Canada's military is facing the prospect of losing its most important ally. How much will we need to spend to protect ourselves? How much are Canadians willing to spend? What kind of weapons will we need to protect ourselves? I'm a retired major from the Canadian Forces. I spent 35 years in the artillery. With me here is retired Major Darren Kenny. Darren served a full career in the Canadian Forces, also as an artillery officer. He commanded a recruiting center and is a graduate of the Army Technical Staff Officer course, specializing in military equipment capabilities and purchases. Also joining me is retired Captain Chris Hunt. Chris served nearly 20 years in the Army Reserve. He holds a master's degree in political studies, a bachelor's degree in political science and sociology, and currently teaches international relations and strategic studies here in Brandon. And finally, retired Sergeant Kevin Spooner spent 30 years in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He was stationed at bases throughout Canada and spent a lot of his time working on F-18s. Gentlemen, welcome. I'd like to start with the commitment that Canada spend 2% of its GDP on defense per suggested NATO guidelines. Currently, Canada spends 1.37%. President Trump's now says the U.S. won't come to the aid of any country that has not met the 2% target. Trump also says he wants all NATO countries to be more than double amount to 5% of the GDP. It was just 2 years ago the Liberal government announced it was cutting the armed forces and defense funding by nearly $1.7 billion. Now the Liberals promise we'll get to 2% GDP by the year 2032. The first question, is Canada delinquent in its obligations? I'll start with you, Chris. Can we, as a country, get there? Is Trump right in making this demand?
Well, I think first of all, we're going to say is any Canadian government would have done that in the past, and we've seen that with both Liberal and Conservative governments, chronically what we would call underinvesting, but really cashing in like a lot of other European and our fellow Democratic allies have done, spending what they can to have some capabilities that plugs into the security the U.S. provides. And as a result, we've been able to enjoy prosperity, healthcare, lots of services by not spending on defense.
I think President Trump is actually correct. He's just telling us to commit to something we've already agreed to. We agreed to spend 2%. Is it, a figure that's outrageous? No. If you look at the state of our forces now, there has to be some improvement, and that's going to come with increased funding. I also want to say, although we're, at the bottom of the list of overall percentage-wise, if you look at the total amount of money spent, I wouldn't say we're, shirking a responsibility. I think we're number 7 in NATO for total spending. Yeah. And like 24 out of all the countries worldwide. So we do have a commitment to it, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Morale is dependent on the budget. If new recruits don't see new equipment, are they going to feel supported? And are they going to feel safe? That's where the budget impetus comes from. It's for the morale of the troops. And if 2% is the number that we're searching for, I don't think we should wait until 20-something. I think we should do it today. And the reason we should do it is to out-Trump Trump at his own game.
Another significant issue is the procurement of new equipment. Recently, Canada brokered a deal with BAE Systems in Australia to purchase a new Arctic over-the-horizon radar. This system is slated to cost $4 billion to acquire. This effectively steals the purchase from the U.S. Canada is also now revisiting its commitment to purchase American F-35 fighters. This was a deal worth $13.2 billion for 88 F-35s amid growing tensions with the U.S. The NDP wants Canada to build its own jets. Is canceling this contract an error? Is this a mistake? Kevin, I'll start with you.
Thank you. I think this may be the first time that I've ever agreed with the NDP. I would love to see Canada build its own jets. We already have aircraft manufacturing within our borders. I think it would be reasonable to ask them to ramp up production and start working on Canada's next generation fighter.
Darren, you have a background in procurement. What are your thoughts?
I actually disagree. I think we should continue on with the purchase. The reason being, if we stop the purchase now, it could be years before we get another replacement. With the way project procurement goes, if we have to restart the whole process, get new manufacturers to bid on it, it could be another 8 years. The program's been going on long enough. Decision was made. I think we need to stick to it.
I think we all would love to see a domestically produced military equipment. The problem is our defense industry, it was really great up until the 60s, and that's where we found the defense industry falling into providing components. So the F-35, for example, we do feed into that, the global supply chain for that, and we've received a lot of economic benefits from that, but we're not producing the fighter itself. And so we're very reliant on the United States. Certainly, there are folks who have raised concerns about the F-35's reliability if the Americans are not going to be a globally engaged partner. And as far as I know, there's no kill switch or anything like that. Certainly not something I would like to be in a fighter I'm flying. But what they can do is get in the way of maintenance. They can get in the way of spare parts, updating the software suite for what's a very sophisticated fighter. It's a tension here between acquiring these capabilities off the shelf, the best quality stuff now, to your point, we can't afford to wait further and further to push that back. We've been trying to get a new fighter since the 90s, essentially, right?
Yeah, we have.
Same in that radar system. I saw in the news as well, certainly some radar companies within Canada wishing they could have a part of that, but are they capable of providing that? Well, probably not, but we haven't invested in them, given them the certainty for you to go to the bank, get the loans you need, build up, and provide that capability. So we're in this position here where we're trying to procure systems. We need top-tier stuff because we're in an increasingly tough neighborhood with the thaw in the Arctic and with the United States changing their position. So we're needing to get quality equipment now, but we also want to build a domestic capacity, and in some ways, those are competing objectives.
Our final topic for tonight, the discussion centers around personnel and recruitment levels. The Canadian Armed Forces consist of regular and reserve force and Canadian Ranger personnel. The target strength is 71,500 regular force personnel and 68,000 reserve force. The current force strength is almost 12% less than those numbers at 68,000. And reserve forces are off strength by 67% at 23,000 personnel. The Canadian Armed Forces is trying to improve its recruitment. There's a probationary process, so applicants can begin training while waiting for their security clearances. And there is no longer a physical fitness or aptitude test. Instead, there's an assessment of current health and life skills. Darren, you ran a recruiting center. What do you think of these new procedures? Will these get us this type of soldier we need? With the current temperature and recent actions involving the United States, do you think recruiting will increase? Do you think more Canadians will line up to serve?
Well, what I think is the new initiatives, they will increase the number of applicants that are found suitable. But I think the big issue, from a general perspective, the recruitment centers are successful. They're getting the applicants. The issue is the training system can only train so many of those applicants at a certain time. I think the Canadian Forces Leadership and Recruit School has a throughput of 5,000 soldiers a year. And we can recruit. I think April 2024 to November 2024, we had, I think, 40,000 applicants, but only 4,000 plus were actually enrolled. The issue is not the recruitment center, it's the training organizations that have the capacity to train them.
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
I am under the impression that the recruiting system is in panic mode, and I'll ask you to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read somewhere that permanent residents can now apply for the Canadian military. That's a massive change. It indicates a level of recruiting panic, chasing numbers. So I think recruiting knows they're in trouble, but you bring up a very huge point. We've gone on recruiting drives before that were successful, and then we ran into training problems. And in fact, we shot ourselves in the foot because everybody waiting in training cells got sick and tired of waiting. And somebody offered them a job, and the military never saw them again. And they lost those people, and they were good people.
From the reserve standpoint, though, I think the attraction isn't the problem. In my experience, when I've either recruited or even talked to students, they're interested. It's a compelling career, but the problem is the processing. And so if you're applying, you're interested, you're a great candidate, and you're waiting 6 months, 12 months, 18 months for a part-time role, where especially if you're in a place where the cost of living is caught up to military wages, you're not really interested in pushing to become a part-time member. To be twice the citizen, it's a great role. I'd recommend anybody, but we got to get that processing under control to get them in the door, right? With that said, though, we've seen a real huge surge with the 51st state annexation threats of interest. When we put the call out to Canadians, since our inception, Canadians stand up, and they'll do their part if we open the door for them.
And the delay on security clearance was years, especially if you're coming from, Afghanistan or a communist country. It was just the wait was just impossible. We couldn't deal with permanent residents.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank my guests, Darren Kenny, Chris Hunt, and Kevin Spooner for joining me. I'm Stu Smoley. Good night and good luck.
Thanks to Stu Smoley for that look at the pressing defense issues facing voters. As we go into this final campaign weekend, our production team had a chance to ask a few folks on their thoughts as they prepare to get out and vote.
I'd like to have what we have now because the NDP pushed the Liberals for pharmacare and dental care and $10 daycare and all that. But from what I've heard about Mark Carney, I think he's capable of taking on Trump. I think he has the smarts to do get our economy going, and he has done it in the past.
I don't know. I always worry about the old people and the young people. So if I see good things for them, I'm happy. Because the old people have a tough time sometimes just feeding themselves, and young people, they just need daycare and people looking after them until they can look after themselves.
Definitely a good economic policy. Definitely an important thing. Inclusion, everything like that. I don't think it necessarily matters the party as long as they got good policies. So.
For thousands of years, prognosticators have claimed the ability to foresee future events. With so much riding on the federal election, we were immediately thrilled to learn there is a method of predicting the future that is reportedly foolproof. We go now to our correspondent in the field, Matt Schroeder.
Have you, much like everyone else, wanted a reliable source for the upcoming election? Who will win? Today, I have the answer to that question. I'm here with a dog that will be representing the Liberal Party, Daisy. Daisy, how do you feel about this upcoming race? Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing your performance. And I'm here with the dog that will be representing the Conservative Party, Bruno. Bruno, how do you feel about this upcoming race? And do you have any thoughts? And are you excited? Oh, talking to the mic, not me, buddy. Okay, thank you very much, Bruno. We look forward to seeing your performance. Good. And here we have the cat that's going to represent the NDP party, Pepper. Pepper, what are your thoughts on this upcoming race? And are you excited? Thank you very much, Pepper. We look forward to seeing your performance. Mark, get set, go! Go, 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 go! Oh my goodness, NDP is taking the lead! With Conservative very close behind in second, and Mark Carney in the Liberal Party, they're very last. Let's slow that down real quick. Look at how ready he is for this race. He came prepared. Now, for the Conservative and Liberal Party representatives, I can't say the same. They didn't come with the same passion. They didn't come prepared. They weren't ready to run like their lives depended on it. That's where I give Pepper his props. He really went out there and showed that the NDP can upset. Now, for the others, they are very upsetting, but in the wrong way. Okay, it's a blowout, not what we expected. Can't wait to see what happens next. This is your most reliable source for the upcoming election. Thank you very much. I'm Matthew Schroeder, Westman This Week. Brandon.
That's all the time we have for our election show preview. We hope you'll tune in to our live election night broadcast, starting at 7:30 p.m. on WCG-TV. Our team will bring you all the results with commentary and analysis every step of the way. We hope you'll join. That's live on WCG-TV at 7:30 p.m. on election night, April 28th. Remember to vote. I'm Kira Stevens. Thanks for being with us.